If making a recurve bow is on your list of to-dos, you know how important it is to have a mold that does not have any kind of twist or undulations and has a perfect curvature for your build. Guys, this is not as difficult to build as you may think, and if you hang out with me for just a few minutes, I will teach you how to make the perfect precision mold for your recurves. When you're getting ready to make a mold of any sort, your very first concern needs to be the material out of which you're making that mold. So my two choices for this would be either MDF, or if you're concerned about moisture, use Baltic birch. But I just go ahead and wrap my, if I'm like steam bending or there's any kind of moisture involved with what I'm doing with an MDF form, I just wrap the form with saran wrap or plastic wrap like you would any kind of glue up form. So MDF fits the bill here. Secondly, when it comes time to doing a recurve mold, you want to familiarize yourself, or obtain a I don't know, I have a proprietary curve that I use, and I'm sure it's one that nobody else uses. There's a bucket with about a 10 1/4 inch diameter on it. And I think this is like drywall mud bucket or something like that. Guys, the curve is actually arbitrary. It's not that important. I mean, it is important, right? So if you figure at a 10 inch diameter, what this gives me is like 5 inches here for my recurve to reside on the limb. That's really kind of where I pick that up from. So the depth of your recurve is really the radius that you're looking for on your whatever you decide to trace this out of. The size of my sheet here also, again, it's kind of arbitrary. It can be as large or as small as you decide to make it. The one I'm using right now is about 13 1/4 inch, and the only reason it's 13 1/4 inch is because that's what I have lying around the shop. It's enough, however, that I know I can get my recurve in here and have enough clamping space for my limb to attach to. So really, the way this is going to look is something along the lines of this, and then we want something on this far end that's going to allow us to put the tip of the bow in and be able to manipulate it across the curve, but it's going to hold it solid or hold it still, right? So we're just going to start right here. The first things first, we're going to just draw in our recurve. So there's my recurve right there. It's going to have something of a, something along these lines, and then a clamping depth right here. So this is just our rough shape of our mold, right? Just like this. Okay, and when we get things going, it's going to look, well, unfortunately, this is backwards. It's going to look a lot like that. So I'm able to get one recurve mold out of this end of the deal. And then we'll make the same recurve mold here. So out of a piece that is 8 1/2 inches by 13 1/4, we're able to get 2 halves of a singular hole. This will make one whole recurve mold, right? And I've already drawn in my shapes. I'm going to take it out to the bandsaw and cut it out, which is why I've got 2 drill holes here. And my intention here is to make this one in its entirety the way I want it, and then I'm going to transpose that information to this side and then we'll make a, and then you can make however many you want. But this is going to be the template, and this is going to then be the substrate that becomes the total mold. Once you have everything smoothed out just exactly the way you want it, and I mean, this has got to be your finished product right here, then we will go about transposing that shape then to the remainder of the MDF form that we've got here. And what you want to do is make sure that you've got a little bit of space on all sides when you're doing this. Now, I don't have any extra space like on the here and here, but those are inconsequential to what we're working on. And we're going to draw out new pencil lines here for all of this. And the idea is just close enough that we can go ahead and cut them out around these lines. And then we'll move on from there as far as finishing the template. But we want to cut outside our lines with the bandsaw and get the second half of our mold put together here. What I'm doing at this point is ensuring that I've got just a little margin of overhang on all portions of the underside piece of MDF that I've attached this to. Now, the only place where I'm not going to have overlay is on the width pieces, you know, on the width, because the width was the same no matter what. And so I'm kind of lining up the well of the molds and then getting these two edges set up such that they're in alignment. But I've got hangover everywhere else. And what I'm going to do is clamp this down. All right. So everything's tightened down so it won't move on me. And I'm going to put 3 screws in this mold. So we've got one solid piece, and you can see that there's basically hangover everywhere around the perimeter of this, of the original piece, which is our template. All right, guys, this is a 1-inch flush trim bit. So it runs on a ball bearing and then cuts right in line with that bearing. All right, I got the bit installed, and I've got it set to a depth where you can see that the bearing is going to ride along our template, but then cut the lower piece. And we're going to get a straight up and down or perpendicular to our edge cut. So it's going to be all square on all edges that we route. All right, guys, when it's all said and done, here's what you have. 1.5 inch wide mold. Everything is squared up, perpendicular to its edges, and everything is even and ready to be used. The mold itself can then be clamped to a tabletop this direction and used. It can be put into a vise this direction, however you choose to affix it to The work surface is up to you, and then, you know, steam and bend your bow tips. Everything's ready to go. So there you go, guys. That's the best way I know in terms of making a template for a recurve tip, and really any kind of template. If you want to make a reflex deflex template or any kind of reflex template, however you decide to make it, stable material, flush cut router bit with one good template, and you're all set to go. So guys, quick installment here. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I will chat with you again next week.